call vote, Jesus. A roll call introduction. I'll simply call you out based on what I'm seeing, and then ask you to introduce yourself and where you're from if you would. So Paul Burton, I'll go ahead and start with you, please.
Paul Burton, Traffic Signal Operations Manager, Town of Sahuarita.
Blake Richards.
Good morning, Blake Richards with the City of Tucson, Traffic Engineering and Maintenance.
Cheryl Hewley.
Cheryl Hewley with Town of Oro Valley.
Jose Rodriguez.
Jose Rodriguez, Town of Oro Valley.
Francisco Leyva.
Francisco Leyva, City of Tucson, Traffic Engineering.
I don't know what I did with it.
Greg Orsini.
We're gonna
Good morning,
get
Greg
some,
Orsini, City of Tucson, Traffic Engineering and Maintenance.
Michelle Montanino.
Michelle Montanino, Pima County DOT, Maintenance and Operations.
Dion Swartz.
Can you hear me?
Yep, got you loud and clear.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dion Swartz, Town of Marana.
Okay. Yao, John Woo.
Hi, it's Yao. Yao Zhang, University of Arizona.
Fantastic. And as Crystal mentioned, we have a phone number, a 520. Let me double check it. 520. We had a phone number.
We got it. We got it, Rick.
Oh, okay.
It was Dion.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. That was Dion. All right, great. And then from the PAG staff side, Crystal.
Hello, good morning.
Sonia.
Good morning, everyone.
Julie.
Good morning, everyone.
Dr. Nassi.
Good morning.
Paul Casertano.
Hi, everybody. Paul Casertano here. Nice to see everyone.
Jeanette.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jeanette Duran, Planning Manager.
Hinsu.
Good morning, everybody. This is Hinsu, I'm Model Manager.
Gabe.
Good morning, everybody. Gabe Thumb here, Transportation Safety Program Coordinator.
And Jeff Hildebrand. I think I saw Jeff on there. Is there anybody I missed? Okay, hearing none. Fantastic.
Hey, you got Blake Olofson from City of Tucson Traffic here too.
Blake, welcome. Good hearing from you. And how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Olofson. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, my friend. Okay, great. Okay, Crystal, yeah, thank you. For next item up is the in-kind reporting. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording the time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG is able to collect this data on time dedicated to meetings, activities, and apply it for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. So if you're paid with federal dollars for this activity, please let us know now. I think typically this isn't, but just quick check. Anybody? Okay, hearing none. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by our PAG staff that are familiar with the agenda and the meeting materials. At the conclusion, the session report will automatically calculate the time, and then we'll make sure we get proper credit for it. Time spent working on the PAG RTA initiatives, programs, special projects may also be eligible for consideration of matching funds. So that's why it's important that we track this, watch it, and monitor that. Okay. Our next item up, this is the one that we've been talking about. We've been providing updates along the way, and this was kind of the whole heart and soul of why we scheduled today's meeting. We originally were going to bring this to you last spring, and unfortunately, for obvious circumstances, we lost that time frame due to the COVID stuff. But this stuff has been essentially in a good position, ready, and we were wanting it to bring back to the committee. We've gone through numerous reviews with the subcommittee members that have been helping with this. We've also presented it a couple times to our executive staff to make sure they've got full buy-in support and additional thoughts and comments they wanted to incorporate as well. So we wanted to unveil it now to all of you here. A couple of things is before we get into this that I want to give a little brief background on this. Essentially, this is a summary presentation. So Gabe, Dr. Nassi, and myself will be going through this. We're not intending this to be the full overall overview of everything. At the conclusion of the meeting, I will then mail out to the committee members the 2 documents we've prepared and presented, which are the backbone of all this stuff. So we're simply introducing it with today. We expect that we will send that out and have you then review it, provide us written comments on that. So we'll distribute that after the meeting and I'll email those out to the committee members. I'll mention this as we go through, but we're looking for comments by the end of April. That should give enough time for everybody to go through, review it, provide us any written comments and any additional thoughts you want to have on that. The next step after that will then be where we'll take it, we'll review it, review the comments, discuss them, make revisions as needed. The ultimate goal is then to bring it back to this committee to close the loop. You'll hear this theme echoed throughout the overall presentation that both Gabe and Dr. Nassi and myself will do, which is the implementation and the use of this is completely up to you, all of you as jurisdictional members. So we recognize this is kind of that deep dive we've been doing, and now we'll be able to present it, share it with you, but it's yours to use as you wish. So with that, this next item is really devoted to the presentation, the overview, and a quick summary of what you're going to see when we mail that out and what the 2 efforts entail. Okay, so background on this, as I've mentioned before, but it's a refresher for those of you that haven't been here in a while or aren't as familiar with this. It was an assessment to focus on traffic signal operations element, valuation, and the effectiveness of the most commonly applied tools. This was coming out of a lot of the discussions we were hearing during the late 18 and all throughout the 19 timeframe, where these 4 predominant aspects were rising to the top of the list for consideration. Lead lag operations, protective permissive operations, adaptive signal, and the pedestrian hybrid or the HAWK signal coordination. There are many, many other aspects of it, and we were well aware of that, but these are the ones that were getting the most of the attention, most of the discussion. From the safety side, the goal was to define the region, the best set of practices for emerging established engineering treatments, programs. Same thing. What were we hearing the most swirling discussions around? And they centered on the protected intersections, the exclusive pedestrian signal phasing, Barnes Dance, solar hawks, tattletale lights, and bike boulevards. So once again, not a limiting list, but rather the ones that were getting the bulk of the attention, bulk of the discussion. The overall methodology and approach on this. So it was something that we had approached our executive staff about. We had asked if we could do this. We had the time, we had the resource, we had the capability. So it was led by a PAG staff and our consultants, specifically Dr. Richard Nassi. We did want to make sure we took a holistic approach and had a fully comprehensive involvement by the members on this. So we included jurisdictional representatives. There were volunteers across a variety of all of the aspects of it. Their input, their contribution was invaluable. So I cannot thank you all enough for taking the time and going on this journey with us, because it really, really, I think, culminated with a great product on that. The intent, as you've heard me say, it was to do the deep dive. We're going after facts. We're going after information, examples, lessons learned, what's working, what's not working. It was here to say we want to have a full understanding of the information available and then provide that to the practitioners from the local jurisdictions so that you would have better information, better knowledge to say, will this work in our jurisdiction? It's more data driven, not, hey, I heard a lot of sexy, cool stuff out of somebody else, or wow, somebody was telling me about this in Texas. It was something that was going to be more site specific and applicable to us here in the region. Along those lines, we kind of looked at this as to what would be the appropriate level, taking into that account and working with our PAG member jurisdictions on this. And we really kind of came up with a sweet spot of landing in here with a documentation of best practices, guidelines, combined with limited recommendations. We didn't want this to be something where, hey, we just did it, research, throw it out there, do with it as you wish. There was a lot of passion, there's a lot of interest in these topics, and so we did not want to just arbitrarily throw it over the wall and say, well, good luck with that. On the same flip side to that, we also recognize the limitations with PAG, how we interact with our regional partners on this, and recognizing that implementation is left up to you as the member jurisdiction. So found that sweet spot in there. We did want to capture these as best practice. We did want to capture if there was emphasis or benefit to this that we wanted to strongly advocate for. So it was shared through the jurisdictional partners through this committee. And then, as I've iterated and will continue to mention, implementation or the incorporation of this into your practices and your programs, it's left completely up to you as you see fit and as you see appropriate. With that, Gabe, the floor is yours to walk us through the safety aspects, if you would.
Thanks, Rick, and good morning, everybody. Crystal, it looks like I have control. Thank you for that. Hope everybody's doing well. As Rick pointed out, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a deeper dive on a number of topics here. Many of you have seen these already, so I will walk through them, but I won't belabor them too much. I'd ask that folks save questions toward the end because we do have a little bit of material to go through. We're going to go ahead and start with protected intersections. I think a lot of you are familiar with these at-grade junctions with the physical separation of cyclists and cars. You know, as Richard is always fond of talking about one of his professors at the University of Washington grade school. University of Washington is separating users of the road with space and time. This protected intersections, they do a great job of doing that. In our research of it, taking a look at it, we found that they're potentially applicable here in our region, but it really is highly context sensitive. You don't want to just throw them out there willy-nilly. For example, I don't know if you'd want to put them on like every arterial intersection. That might be quite a bit. But yeah, they can be applied here, but they should be thoroughly considered to understand potential trade-offs before widespread implementation. Yeah, site-specific evaluation and design is strongly recommended. It's not recommended for widespread application, and it really is better suited for smaller intersections. That being said, it's for the intersections where it is right, it really can be a big safety benefit for the vulnerable users.
You might have gone muted, Gabe.
You left us all speechless.
Gabe, hold on just a second. I have to unmute you. Don't move your mouse.
Geez, Crystal, if you didn't like what I was saying so much, you could have just said so.
I've never had that happen before. I apologize.
No, that's not the first time I've been shut up. It's okay. It's quite fine.
Boy, can you share that, Crystal? There's a lot of us in a team update. No.
Let me see if I can get back. I'm not seeming to be able to control the slides anymore, Crystal. Do you just want to go ahead and take control and I'll just tell you next screen?
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you. So if you can go back up. Here we go. So we'll get back with the Barnes dance or the exclusive pedestrian signal phasing. I think everyone knows what this is, but this is when all traffic approaches go red and pedestrians are allowed to cross in all directions. This can be appropriate in limited circumstances. But again, this is another one where you want to take a really close look at it. This really can move a large number of pedestrians at the same time. Although sort of counterintuitively, there are longer delays for all users. So not just for the cars that are waiting, but for the pedestrians. The other concern that we had with this and researching it is that there's less pedestrian compliance. Peds will often cross against the wait signal because the phases are just longer. All the cycles are longer. So they're going to just go ahead and cross. I always picture 6th and in Congress, and if that had a Barnes dance on it and a pedestrian's waiting to cross Congress, well, they've got 2 lanes of traffic to cross. If there's a huge gap, which there often is along Congress, I just don't see pedestrians waiting, for another 90 or 120, 150 seconds. We didn't really see this application warranted use in the region. And we really would strongly recommend that leading pedestrian interval or time of day plan should be strongly considered as an alternative. Next slide. Solar Hawk. So the first Solar Hawk was installed by the city in 2019. Solar Hawks are identical to regular hardwired Hawks. They just are literally getting their power from the sun. They are, as far as costs go, which we think is the big benefit, is they're comparable to other but less effective crossing treatments. I'm kind of winking at the RRFB right here. It costs just a smidge over. I think we were in the range of 34 to 35,000 is what the estimates were for the Solar Hawk. And Blake, you can correct me at the end if I'm incorrect about that. Compared to about a $25,000 installation for the RRFB. But again, those with their compliance levels, the way that they are much less, yeah, we would advocate for the Hawk for sure. Deployment on larger roads is a possibility, given the proper design considerations, such as where's your solar, what's the power consumption, how many heads do you have, your battery life, and backup power. We're continuing to evaluate this with the city, and again, I'd welcome Blake's input on this. It's been a minute since we've touched base with them on that, so be happy for him to weigh in here. But we would recommend before any wide-scale deployment that the following should be considered. The reliability requirements need to be met. This is a tough one. We know that there's a lot of maintenance needs out there in every jurisdiction. This is one where we really have to be on top of it as far as making sure that that Hawk is working and if it has a light associated with it, that's turning on and all of those things. So yeah, this should also include establishing a regular and routine maintenance program that is consistent with expected life cycle. Blake, do you want to jump in here? Do you want to share anything about what you've learned with your Solar Hawk experience?
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, we've had some trouble with the manufacturer. I won't name them here, but I know that Austin has several of these, and we've had some challenges with the electronics. Getting it going. It seems to be functioning now. We have one at Grande and Alameda. I know that South Tucson installed one recently, and I, in passing, was speaking with the contractor that installed it, and I understand they're having some difficulties as well. I guess the good news is the manufacturer really is behind the product, and they are more than willing to go above and beyond. They've come out from El Paso several times. We do have one planned for Glen and Treat that will be a bike hawk, and we've sized the batteries appropriately for the additional indications. So we still are pretty excited about it, but as far as widespread application, I don't think we're there yet. We're trying to select locations where I would say primarily like 3-lane sections, one travel lane in each direction with a 2-way left turn lane, where maybe a Hawk is a little bit, I don't want to say unwarranted, but the crossing is considered safe without the device. It's just an extra measure, but we do want to continue experimenting with it and evaluating it. The last thing I'd mention is that we're doing it on curbed sections where the poles are protected, and also where there's existing overhead street lighting, because we haven't explored the I guess the need for how we could have solar power street light on a dependable basis. So I know I threw out a lot there, but feel free if any of the other jurisdictions want to reach out to me or Gabe, we can give you some more information.
Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to tattletale lights or red signal enforcement lights. I think everyone knows what these are as well. These really improve law enforcement's ability to enforce the red light compliance, resulting in reductions in red light running. They're low cost. They've got a proven safety benefit. They're used nationally. We've used them in the region for decades. It's well liked by law enforcement. And it's a really good example of combining engineering and enforcement efforts. Our biggest caveat on this is that any kind of wide scale deployment should be done in close consultation with local law enforcement. You don't want to just throw these out there as a DOT and expect them to work magic. You gotta let your officers know that they're out there and that they're going to be working. Bike boulevards. Bike boulevards are an alternative route to facilitate the separation of large volumes of cyclists from high-speed, high ADT freight and traffic corridors. So on this, think 3rd Street, think 4th Fontana Bike Boulevard, think Treat, what Treat is about to become. It's usually on residential streets, and those are enhanced for cyclists. There's an element of traffic calming plus traffic diversion included here. Connectivity is a huge part, making sure that the residential streets that you have selected are going to allow cyclists to get a good distance easily in sort of a straightforward manner. And really, bicycle boulevards should be under 2,000 ADT at the very least, if not under 15 or 12. There's a huge safety benefit associated with bicycle boulevards. When we took a look at bicycle crash rate by facility type as part of our safety plan efforts, bicycle boulevards were shown to have 1/15 the bicycle crash rate of arterial roadways. So pretty huge. The most applicable locations would be in the higher density areas, parallel to significant high volume corridors, along with a good network connectivity as previously indicated. Effective crossings of major cross streets, it really is a key component to bicycle boulevards. If you want a successful network of bike boulevards, you have to be able to get cyclists and pedestrians across these busy roadways in a safe and efficient manner. So Hawks, Bike HAWKS, other ways of crossing these major streets, it's definitely a necessary feature. Next slide. So that's it from me for now.
Okay. I'll pause there. Are there any quick questions for Gabe? Any clarification on the items he covered? As I mentioned, we don't want to go into a necessary deep discussion on this or the subsequent presentation I'll give on the traffic signal component. But if there was any clarification he can provide, anybody got anything on that?
I have a question, Rick. This is Dion.
Go for it, Dion. Thanks.
Hey, Gabe, in terms of the telltale lights, is there a color that is used across the board, or has there been some variation about the color that's used?
The only color that I'm aware of is blue, which is what I've seen. I think white can also be used. They're pretty innocuous. They're off to the side. They're not really meant to be seen by the driving public. So I think you have some latitude in that. But I would defer to Dr. Nassi on any colors outside of blue or white.
The town of Marana installed some telltale lights in coordination with our police department, and it kind of created a little bit of a buzz. Kind of interested in whether it affects any driver behavior. I doubt long term there's any effects, but if you have any information on that, it'd be interesting.
I don't know of any driver behavior being affected by this. Again, they're out of the way. They're not in the normal cone of vision. It's not intended to be anyway. It's off to the side. It really is for those motor officers that are downstream from the light in the perpendicular direction. So if you're going left, if you're stopped at a signal and you're looking around, it's possible to see one for sure, but I don't think it's going to give any sort of indication in any which way, especially considering their size. I think that's a big component as well. I know that the town of Sahuarita, I know that the town of Sahuarita, there were some concerns about telltale lights down there. And I think that got squared away, but I guess I would refer to Paul Burton on that one.
That was taken care of pretty effectively. It was more a public relations issue than an actual problem, aside from the fact that when they were initially deployed, they were aimed very much directly at oncoming traffic, and they're really bright lights, so it tended to be a little distracting. We re-aimed them, and that problem is pretty well gone away. Rather than using it for perpendicular traffic, since we use NEMA standard phasing, they're directed towards oncoming traffic, so officers can tell whether on the far side of the intersection, whether they have a green ball, green arrow combination, or if the light is in fact red.
And Paul, those only turn on when the light itself is red, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So what I found was really effective was to tell people that they were installed primarily for maintenance, so traffic technicians could tell what color the light was on the other side of the intersection. However, the police may use them to ensure that they don't wrongly cite drivers going through a green light.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah,
Boy,
that's great. Very slick.
I feel the urge to vote for you for some reason right now.
It's all the spin.
Okay. Any other questions for Gabe? Okay, we'll move on to the second component then, which focused on the traffic signal operations activities. I wanted to open up this presentation by emphasizing the effort or the key attributes that were numerously timed, that were emphasized to me a number of times, which is the network conditions have to be fully functional. We have to have state-of-the-art detection, controller systems, and communication. So this is critical to any type of traffic signal operation. I realize preaching to the choir on this one, but it was one of those things that was really, really pounded home to me as I was going through this by others, and wanted to make sure we emphasize that importance to it. Parallel with that is the staffing must be appropriate to provide for the oversight, the monitoring, timing, adjustments, and overall management of the system. Once again, preaching to the choir, and I know that, but it's been something we've been emphasizing. We shared this with our executives as well, that this is not a flip the switch and go off and do other duties. It's a living, breathing, and must be driven on a regular basis. So it's not one of those cruise control, I'll come back and check it in 6 months and just make sure it's working right. So all of you that deal with this on a daily basis know that. But more importantly, I wanted to say thank you for helping me understand why that was so critical to that, because without being hands-on with it, it's not quite as apparent as to how critical that is. So I'll now get into then some summary things of what we came up with. So first and foremost, looking at the lead lag operations, what things we found here, and this is really just meant to be summary of kind of our findings and conclusions that we wanted to pass along. Obviously, the reports that we're going to send you have a lot more of the detail information, background, and a lot more of the clarification, explanation, and overview. But in essence, allowing left turn maneuver to operate in a fully permissive manner is going to introduce what all of you have referred to as the trap condition for the leading left turn maneuver. This can be addressed by making the left turns protected only, but then you're going to have to get into that discussion in the overreaching aspect of protective permissive. So we made sure that the report acknowledges there's some overlap in now those aspects of it. So it was definitely something that was a finding out of the research that's a real life condition, that's a real life situation that has to be acknowledged and dealt with. As far as deployment efforts, felt that this is really kind of in that pilot test case, maybe not ripe for a full scale everywhere type of thing. And it really needs to be accompanied then by an evaluation of how well is this really working for us? Is this getting us what we want in terms of safety and effective operations? So felt that any kind of implementation on that would be best couched under that kind of umbrella so that it had the ability to be flexible and dynamic as the jurisdiction sees fit. And prior to implementation, this point was emphasized by the key folks working with this or that have looked in it. There is a lot of public information and outreach. And that's not really new to all the practitioners in here. We do the same thing when we've implemented on the capital side, new configurations, be it jug handles, indirect lefts, roundabouts, any type of new thing that differs from what is everybody's used to, needs a little bit of public information. Feel free to call Paul Burton to get the good spin cycle put on that, and that'll obviously get you in good shape with your public relations and output. But really, we kind of saw that this has merit, it has warrant, but buyer beware is essentially what we'd come up with on this one. Then segueing directly into the protected permissive operations. The savior of all mankind, it'll reduce and eliminate everything. First and foremost, we wanted to dispel that myth. That's basically protected only is not a universal solution that is massively better than permissive protected control. Inc. and Richard or Dr. Nassi, if you would correct me, there was a statements made by a lot of different, I'm going to call them folks, settings in different arenas about like a 90% plus effectiveness, when in reality it was closer down to the 40 to 50% reduction. So essentially it was not quite as good as advertised in that. So that was one of the big things we wanted to dispel, and the documents can confirm that. Also, the flashing yellow arrows that are out there, they're nationally encouraged. The next edition of the MUTCD is going to have a lot more about that. And combined with the pedestrian protect signal controller feature, essentially that was finding is that's the best default condition out there. That was confirmed in some ongoing reports, documents, and it basically provides the best overall intersection configuration. One thing that as we looked into this, and it was critical and paramount to reinforce to everybody, is that regardless of what you do out there, we do have a world where we're dealing with driver behaviors, and traffic control does not solve that. So any type of situation is always going to need the consistent enforcement. It's always going to need to focus on the engineering, the education component of that. And that's going to have to always accompany these type of things. Once again, reaffirming, you can't just flip a switch. It's going to be perfect, walk away type of thing. We have an interactive environment. We need to be respectful of that. The next item was the adaptive traffic signal control. And this I know has had a lot of discussion in different settings. It's had a lot of evaluation, a lot of interest. So what we found on this one, and reinforcing the notion that it is absolutely necessary that your detection, communication, and controller equipment is all got to work. It's got to be state of the art. It has to be reliable. It has to be dependable. It can't be something you've bandaged together or put with a lot of duct tape. If you want this type of application to work, you have to have the equipment to pull it off. It is also highly dependent on the regular operations, maintenance oversight by the traffic staff, personnel, and it's not one of those things you can flip a switch on that I've referred to earlier. What we found on this is the performance results gathered, they're not fully conclusive. There are a lot of benefits out of that. It is not a dismissing of this type of approach. However, it has not been the absolute panacea that everybody was expecting, that this was going to solve all world's problems on that. There have been mixed results on this, mixed opinions, varying ones. Fortunately, folks are still open to it. So it's getting the look, it's getting the investigation, it's getting the ongoing evaluation before any conclusive deductions have been kind of landed on that. In addition, resources and technology, not quite fully in place. I know we're doing a lot of upgrades here in the region. A lot of other places are doing them as well. Going back to that opening statement that you've got to have the equipment in there. If everything works and you've got all this stuff in place, you can open the door on it. But as we're working to upgrade that, it just may not be a suitable application yet. So at the end of the day, kind of concluded that the current practices right now, our time of day operations, that's working pretty well for us. And that will continue to buy us some time for the short term as this evaluation, as our learning, and as we get more familiar with the adaptive signal control, and as we get better understanding of what's needed, how it works, its benefits, and any other tweaks or adjustments on that. So really see this as a potential, but right now, don't buy into this one quite yet without knowing full well what we're getting into. The last one is the integration of the HAWKS and the signals on this. Many of you have heard this. This is the one that I routinely got coming out of the Capitol side is, well, you don't need to widen to a 4-lane roadway if you just get your HAWKS and signals all integrated. Okay, a lot of claim, and this had been looked into. As we dove into this one, several of the members that were on the working committee on this reminded me that, Rick, you're not the first one that's asked. We've done this, we've looked into it. Pay attention to why it's come back. And so these were the whys. First and foremost, the high level effectiveness on this we experience on the HAWKS systems is due to the fact that the motorists and pedestrians use the system properly. It does what it's supposed to because people do what they're supposed to. That was really, really emphasized to me as we were doing the deep dive onto this. And subsequently deviating from these established patterns and protocol will possibly negatively impact the compliance issues on this. And that's a really, really big thing because as you've heard throughout the region, HAWKS are the one thing that works the way it's supposed to, as promised, as it's intended to, and in a high degree of efficiency. So compromising that, diminishing that is not in the best interest of the region on that. That's a safety detriment that was not viewed as any kind of acceptable trade-off on that. In addition, FHWA has now has come in and recently stated that the immediate response is preferable than having to have pedestrians wait. You heard Gabe talk about that there's a couple of those that he looked at where the odds of getting somebody to wait when they think they can make it. We've all seen it. We're all aware of it here in the profession. We know that's a real life thing. But even FHWA has reported that they've seen, you know what, if you've got that immediate response, that's going to be the reality that we deal with. And that'll ensure that it works as it's supposed to be. So what our conclusions on this were that a HAWK or a similarly operated signalized crossing could be continued to be established in a hot button operation mode so that it is consistent with all the national and local operating procedural guidelines on that and understood by the motorists and pedestrians both. One thing we did come out though, essentially, is saying on multi-lane roadways, the door may be open and there should be consideration to the possibility of two-stage crossing configurations. So there may be a refuge island that could be provided in the center of the roadway. And that configuration would be probably the most conducive to minimizing the impacts on traffic flow, but yet not compromising safety. So bottom line in this one was and you know, as I've now shared this with other people outside this group that have asked about it, you know, well, how come you don't do it? The fact of the matter is we can. The technology is there, but should we? And this hopefully addresses that through our findings. You know what, this is not one of those ones that we need to do. So if there is a belief or a perception that, you know, 15 to 20 minute travel times are going to be doubling or quadrupling because we have a hot button operation for a HAWK signal, that's a misnomer, that's a misunderstood thing, and we've got to do our best to clarify that. So our next steps, as I said, we're going to be mailing this out there. We wanted to bring this forward to all of you today as the working committees on this and as the main practitioners. I'll mail out the reports following this meeting, send that to all the committee members. Then we'll look to any kind of comments, feedback you've got. Email that to to Gabe and myself and Dr. Nassi. We'll evaluate those, look those over, make determinations on what we need to revise, and then we'll come back at our next meeting and make a final presentation, close the loop with all of you, and then essentially hand it off to be ready for implementation or incorporation as each of the jurisdictions see fit. So that concludes the portion I wanted to go over. I know that's very brief. It was intended to be. It's just a highlight preview of what you'll see as the reports are sent to you and then going forward as you do your review. Any questions, anything I can clarify for either myself, Dr. Nassi, or Gabe? Okay. Hearing none, then I would like to move into our next item up, which is the update on the various PAG safety activities. Gabe, the floor is yours. What do you got? What do you know, my friend?
Hello again, everybody. Yeah, I'll just briefly run through a few things that we've been doing here. We completed road safety assessment. It was design stage and virtual, which is the first in the state that we know of. That went off really well. That was for Valencia Road from Kolb to Houghton. Somas was the designer. It was with the city of Tucson and with Pima County. We thought it went very smoothly. We had a really great team from across the state that was able to tune in and to help us out. So we're really happy with that. I think it was in large part a big success because we have designed road safety assessments down pretty well. And since we've been a year into this, I think being in the Zoom environment is pretty familiar to folks. And so it went off without a hitch. So we're happy about that. We're continuing our development of Safety Explorer and those efforts. We're hoping that this month we're going to be rolling out some additional functionality that we've been promising to you for a while. We just met with TPD yesterday to introduce them to some of that functionality. And we were very excited to see them, curious to see what we have as far as what our data analysis and sharing platforms that we have to offer would be available to them. So that's very exciting. We're updating our Walk Safe, Drive Safe website, which is going to include a new pledge for cyclists, pedestrians, and drivers. It's a pledge, but obviously it's in large part an effort to educate and encourage users of the network to be as safe and legal as possible. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, is we understand that there's going to be an ADOT HSIP call for projects July 1. So I know that's still a couple months down the road and you will have time to prepare and develop your applications. But for member jurisdictions that are going to be looking to acquire additional safety funds, now is the time to start thinking about where your needs are. I am happy to work with you on that to sort of get that ball rolling before we get into the actual application season. Our plan right now is to do what we did for the last call for project, which is to put under contract firms that are going to be able to help develop those applications with member jurisdictions. So this is something that was very successful. The last round, we were able to get $11 million of safety funds in the PAG region. We'd like to do that again. We see the opportunity to replicate that, and we're encouraging everyone here and beyond within our region to work with us so we can be successful on that once again.
Gabe, real quick, what was the fiscal years that their call for project is going to be? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I think it's just 25, but I think it might be 25, 26, but I think just 25 for now. Paul Casertano, do you happen to know that one?
I'm not sure if it's just 25 or 25, 26. I'm sure we'll hear from ADOT soon on that one.
Yeah, we'll distribute. They'll distribute something, and then we'll overlap with that, and we'll also distribute that to the region. So you'll see for sure.
And you know, I just wanted to take the opportunity to bring everybody up to speed. We're still working to get the fiscal 23 and 24 HSIP projects into the TIP. That should be a pretty straightforward procedure, but they're not currently in the draft. So we've had some issues at the committee level with that. We're working through that, and it should be pretty straightforward. I'm really glad that Gabe emphasized our support and willingness to help the jurisdictions get to HSIP funding for important safety remediations. This is something we've talked about for years and something we tried to build into our safety planning efforts from the very beginning, not just setting up a regional safety strategic transportation safety plan, but also providing the necessary support into implementation. So we're very committed to helping you out on that end. And so I'm delighted with the success that's been, we've been able to help you all land $11 million for important safety projects, and we want to see that continue. So thanks.
Yeah, this is Blake Olson, and I want to echo that. That was a really excellent opportunity the last cycle, and we struggle with staff, and we just couldn't have done it without PAG's assistance. And I know I'd asked this question in the past, and I kind of heard a no on the consultant assistance, but I just want to that's really exciting. You made my day, so thanks a lot.
Oh, it's great to hear.
I just want to jump in and say that Gabe's a liar. This is Josh Pope. For the record, sorry, I missed the intros at the beginning. I was jumping off the public feed and into the room here. We aren't necessarily going to be rolling out updates this month. Sorry, Gabe.
Oh.
To the Safety Explorer. I know I told you. But my goal is to get a survey out to the active users of the platform in order to kind of help prioritize what we're going to be hitting in the next 2 months in lead up to that HSIP call for projects, that NOFA. We do have work waiting in the wings. It needs beta testers, which is often myself. But we're gonna start the engagement, but we're not gonna roll out the features. It still needs some of the workflows ironed out and get some of the hinkiness out of the way before we roll it out to the team. So we are so anxious. We've had these since last January. We want to get them to you, but we also want it to be not frustrating. But
Right.
we will get that survey out to get some feedback on your priorities and your direction on what you want us to focus on when we are fully available next month to tighten up the platform. So sorry, Gabe.
No, it's all good. I should point out too, though, that the existing Safety Explorer is still out there. We're just trying to make it better. We're trying to improve on what we think is already a great platform and a great analysis tool for you to help identify where you're having issues and what those issues are. So it's a key component in the stepwise process of acquiring, of ultimately trying to mitigate these issues, but a key step in the process of acquiring that HSIP funding through the call for projects. So
Right.
It's still we're trying to add on some value to it and some additional functionality, but as it is existing, it's still a great platform that's going to be able to help us along in the process. So
Thanks, Gabe.
thanks, Josh.
Yep.
So I've been shut up and called a liar in this meeting. This is
Well, and yesterday I called you a
banner
nerd.
meeting.
So
and yesterday you called me a nerd at a meeting too. I'm 3 for 3 here.
I was gonna say, if anybody wants to email your, support for Gabe or your jabs, feel free. Apparently this is the day. So
in lieu of flowers, please send support to my address directly.
Gabe, we have other words for you.
That's all I've got, Rick, for the safety activities.
The Gabe Love Day. So, hey, one thing to add on to what, and Gabe, if you said it while I was writing down, I apologize for missing it, but just to let everybody know that while we're focusing on the design RSAs right now, the regular RSA program, so any spot analyses, anything else, that's still fully operational. Is that correct, Gabe? You're still able to offer that as a service, even in a remote virtual world. You can accommodate, you can work around anything like that, correct?
Absolutely. If there's anything that you need, we can do that. Yeah, that's a good opportunity, Rick, to also remind folks that we have our mini RSAs, which are not quite as involved. They're not consultant involved, but that's usually myself and Richard, maybe one other person going out there, and it's for your smaller scale issues. But if you have something that you're scratching your head at, something that you're concerned about, and you want another set of eyes and ears out there, please let me know, and like I said, Richard and I can go take a look at it and help you out with that. So we've got a wide variety of different areas of service that we can provide to folks along the safety program.
And as we look at fiscal 25, we're certainly going to be looking at any needs and opportunities to seek additional HSIP funding to continue the RSA services. So if they are indeed of value to you from the jurisdictional perspective, please don't be shy about that. Let us know, and we can have that discussion with you. If we're at a place where our funding is going to be running dry by fiscal 25, we're certainly going to be considering putting in an application for our RSA program activities.
Perfectly said. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Any questions for Gabe? Anything else to touch upon? Any insults you want to throw at Gabe before we move on to the next item?
It's not too late, everybody.
Yep. No, in all seriousness, any questions or additional thoughts for Gabe or Josh or Paul?
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Good deal. Crystal, if you can go ahead and advance to the next one, and yep, perfect. Communication signal update activities. This is the one we kind of get a standing item for updates. Francisco, if I can call on you and have you go first on Tucson's wireless effort. First and foremost, what can you share?
There hasn't been any change from the last meeting. We're still working on bringing on some of the fiber locations. A development that's coming up here soon is the use of the community wireless program the city implemented. This is a program to give internet access to low-income families, and we are gonna pilot to see if we can use the same network to connect our traffic signals. And this would include since it's a low-cost option, if it's successful, we're gonna include our HAWKS, and so try to get connectivity back to all of our traffic signal assets. That's what I got for now.
Okay. Okay, and then from the county, Michelle, what have you got to share?
Nothing really new here either. We're all still connected through cellular connectivity right now.
Okay. On this topic, any questions, anything else to add from the other jurisdictions on this regarding the signal communications?
Rick, this is Dion.
Dion, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I mentioned the last time we met, the town was looking at purchasing MaxView, and we have done that. So we are going to have our own MaxView server, and right off the bat, because we've got a pretty strong fiber optic backbone, we're going to probably get about, I forget the exact number, but pushing 20 signals right away connected via fiber and MaxView, and then connect a few other signals this fiscal year or next fiscal year using radios. So we're moving forward with that, and it's looking quite promising at this time.
Dion, along those lines, would you like me to add your efforts on this as a standing bullet item for this and for an update on a regular basis as well? Or do you prefer just kind of as it comes up? And
yeah, either way is fine with me. I understand Oro Valley's looking at getting MaxView also. Maybe Cheryl could mention that, talk about that.
Cheryl or Jose, are you still on with us?
Yeah, I'm here. So we're looking at some different options right now, and kind of seeing what the cost is for all of them and evaluating it that way, and what we can get at our intersections to kind of have a whole system. We do have some communications with MaxView right now. We still don't have everything on MaxView. And we're still not communicating with all of our intersections either, so.
I'll tell you what, if both of you are okay with it, sounds like you're making progress on that. I can go ahead and add you into the updates on that effort, if that's okay with both of you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And just want to make a plug for our SAITE program on April 16th. It's not MaxView, but it's MyoVision, and it's traffic signal connectivity, and it has performance measures. Michelle Montanino with the county is going to make a presentation on the county's use of MyoVision, and Joe Yosway and GJ Anderson are going to talk about Oro Valley's application of MyoVision. And so that's April 16th from noon to 1 p.m., the Southern Arizona chapter of ITE.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or updates on this topic?
Yeah, Rick, Paul Burton down in Sahuarita. I have 2 signals that are going to be brought online here shortly with MyoVision. And so that's about 11% of my signals. But we're actually making some progress. We've pretty well given up on our Wi-Fi network just because our radios were kind of old, and the company we were using for support was sketchy. And it's sort of the experience that we seem to have had at the city of Tucson, with just trying to maintain everything we had. So I'm going strictly another route.
Along those lines, Paul, do you want me to add you to the same mix along with Dion and Cheryl, and just basically have all 5 jurisdictions prepare a quick summary then, or plan on giving an update? You got enough activity on that, or do you want to just weigh in as it's appropriate?
I'll weigh in as it's appropriate. Since I'm not actually funded for this, I'm stealing money from other places to do our long-term communication stuff and sort of sneaking it in a signal or 2 at a time.
Got it.
So it's probably going to be 5 years before I'm like done, but hey, you know, communications in 5 years is better than never. So
I was going to say,
I'm happy to take it.
When you're going from cannon string to full blown, you take it and you jump on it. Okay. I'll keep that then, and just, yeah, feel free as you've got progress updates, but I'll go ahead and add Marana and Oro Valley to the list of standing updates. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Paul, you have a 5-year plan. Hey, I have a question for Francisco, if you don't mind, Rick.
Nope, go ahead, Dion.
It's regarding adding the HAWKS signals to the system, and I wasn't sure whether that included getting them on MaxView, because my concern was for the number of licenses. Here at the town, we're going to migrate up to 25 licenses from the RTDN to support our MaxView system. So just expressing a concern that there's, you know, a limit to how many licenses we currently have, and then beyond that, there's going to be additional charges for licenses. So if we start adding HAWKS, and it does require additional licenses, then we need to evaluate the benefits of including the HAWKS in the system and balance that with the additional cost of more licenses.
Yeah, our HAWKS are already on MaxView. They're just not talking to us because they don't have communication.
Okay. Very good then.
Okay.
So if it kind of sounds like every agency in the region is sort of going their own way as far as communications. Is this actually still a regional project?
Well, you know, that's what I wanted to bring up, just in terms of, I know we had raised the issue with center to center communications, but I don't recall that being 100% settled. And I just wanted to raise that issue again and see if there's any work that needs to be put into ensuring that these separate systems are talking to each other in the right way, and that we can continue to coordinate signal timing and operations in a seamless regional manner, or have you do it rather.
So we also, there's some money coming up for a RTDN project, and I am working to come up with a proposal for jurisdictions on how can we use this money and bring communications to all the signals in the region, even though you might be connected to different MaxView, but we can still have a regional, the regional money to assist with the communications to those signals. So you should guys be waiting to hear from me in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think I could speak for the county when I say that we, as well as Marana, when I say that we we want to be part of the regional system, and it seems to me the way to do that is through some sort of center-to-center system. And the reason I think I could speak for the county is Michelle said as much to me in the past. She could change her mind, of course. So yeah, I think that there's definitely opportunities to do that. I think it's going to be a step-by-step process to find out what the challenges are as we move forward in that direction, because we haven't done it before. But I think philosophically, the region supports a regional system.
So from the county perspective, yes, we definitely see the benefit of maintaining that regional center. Even though we are relying now heavily on the MyoVision, we are still have the connectivity to the city MaxView server. So all of our information is also displayed there as well.
Same for Oro Valley. We support the regional system, and we're kind of going with what the county is also doing. We're having problems just getting communication to some of the signals, but we do have some on MaxView, and then we'd like to have, you know, really reliable communication with our own signals for our own staff, and then still be connected into the regional MaxView.
So we'll rely on you guys, and you know, I understand step by step may be the way to go, but I'm just going to put this out there. If there's need for something more, whether that be some sort of network architecture design or concept of operations or whatever the need may be, to make sure that we help you stitch it together the way that it should be stitched together and document it appropriately so that it doesn't just begin to fall apart as people change positions or what have you, please be in touch with us and let us know what those steps might be, because I'm a little removed at this point, and I'm not exactly sure what we can do to help, but I don't want to leave you guys out there with needs that might still persist. If there's steps that need to be taken in order to ensure that everything is connected together in the right way and documented appropriately, let's have those discussions and figure out what we can do to help.
Good deal, and thanks, Paul. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts to share on this one? We'll keep it as a standing item, and I'll add Marana and Oro Valley to the update list. Okay, that's the list. That's it for the agenda items. Anybody want to go back? Any questions? Any additional thoughts on any of the items we've covered?
Rick, I just had one question back to your and Gabe's presentation.
Yep, go for it.
For the adaptive signals, did you look at, you know, instead of an adaptive signal, doing a dynamic timing for through movements, or did you not compare those at all? The only thing I saw was the dynamic for a left turn.
I'm going to say no, just because I'm at a loss of, so what's it called? A dynamic timing?
Yeah, it's a dynamic timing. It handles, you know, like peak hours better. You know, if there's a certain peak time, like around a school, it'll increase the timing while there's more traffic, and then it'll decrease it as the traffic goes away.
Okay.
So it's a little easier to program than like an adaptive.
So Cheryl, that's like enhanced time of day plans, right? That's more,
yeah,
more responsive time of day plans, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheryl, do you mean like volume density with like dynamic max?
Yeah. We do it at one of our school intersections, and it's worked really well. So I didn't know if anybody else was doing it or anybody's looked into it.
I'm going to say we didn't, but we'll have to follow up on that one. So I'll go ahead and take that comment now and add that to what we'll need to check into and have an answer for you on that one.
Okay.
So Cheryl, I do volume density on almost all my intersections, since there's kind of scattered out a little bit. And I have a couple that get really, really heavy traffic at school time.
Okay.
And so I do some kind of phenomenally long dynamic maxes on certain movements, and it seems to work really, really well.
And this is something that's already built into the existing controller, correct?
Correct.
I think Cheryl's kind of making a distinction between responsive signals versus adaptive signals. And I think that's a good point. There are a lot of responsive capabilities like Paul talked about that are certainly lower hanging fruit than an adaptive signal system.
Rick, this is Richard. If I might follow up, Dion is absolutely correct. A lot of our work was the adaptive elements, and Cheryl's work is a part of a very powerful program that you can find with controllers, but not necessarily the fully adaptive that we were looking at, like ADOT was working on Oracle Road.
Okay.
So we touched a part of it, but we really focused in on the futuristic adaptive elements, and then we found that some of those adaptive elements needed good maintenance of the communication systems. And what was happening was that without good maintenance and good detection, they were not providing their full capabilities as a pre-timed system would have. Cheryl's work and what Paul had indicated and what Dion had hit right on the head is that some of the current equipment can do some of those elements of it and should be continued to do some of those elements. But we were looking at the more pure adaptive element.
Right. And this question, I guess, for anybody that's it sounds like, if I'm understanding this right, that it's still an enhanced time of day operation or time of day principle. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think you're correct. So Cheryl, to your comment specifically, I think we'd want to beef up our write-up a little bit on that, because in the presentation portion, as you noted, that in lieu of jumping to the fully adaptive configuration, as Dr. Nassi is saying, we did recognize that time of day in its full capabilities is still going to provide a very, very effective fallback. So it's not set, the operators aren't going to be settling for something that's going to be second class. It's still really, really good, really effective, as you said. We'll probably want to beef that up. So we'll go back and take a look at that. And thank you for the comments.
Thank you.
Thank everybody else for jumping in with the extra clarification on that. That's helpful. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Rick, it seems like maybe there's not, but I just wanted to point out, just for a Zoom meeting safety and security, it seems like we have someone that has snuck into the meeting. I just wanted to point out, I think we have Jorge Riveros as part of the meeting here. Is that, do I see Jorge in here?
Yes, you do.
Well, hello, Jorge Riveros. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Welcome back.
Maybe I should say welcome back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the hair like Mr. Cotter, so I don't know if you want to welcome me back quite yet.
Welcome back.
Everybody add that visual, sing the song at your own risk.
We all have our own COVID style, Jorge.
Well, good.
Mr. Riveros.
So you're Horseshack. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I don't even want to know who's flipping over in their grave right now. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
You're back in what capacity, Jorge?
I am Deputy Director here at PCDOT. And I will be overseeing the operations, maintenance, and project delivery functions. So that is in my purview. That's in my org structure. So, but Michelle's group happens to fall into that category. So I just kind of jumped in, which has been very nice. I got to tell you, over the last few years, my calendar looks horrendous. And I've been here, a week, and I've got so many holes in it. I feel so good. It's nice and comforting not to have every minute in your calendar completely full. So it's a nice break.
Am I the only one that heard that as a challenge issue to the group to,
No,
flood Jorge and fill
yeah.
that in? Because
No problem.
I mean, that's
Universe heard that.
he just
yes.
threw that down, man. That wasn't even like thinly veiled. That was pretty much just saying, hey.
Your invitation to the dance. Yes.
Wow.
Well,
congratulations. Good to have you back, amigo. How you doing? Good deal.
Yeah, good to have you back, Jorge. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. With that, folks, if you would tentatively hold, so as we go forward, I'll be mailing out the reports as we talked about, looking for comments back by the end of the month, and then we'll take some time to evaluate that. What we're primarily looking for, so just to bring a close to this, is if you're aware of any kind of gaps, missing information, kind of along the lines of what Cheryl brought up, but if there's anything else out there you know of that, wow, you need to tune us on to, aim in our direction, please do. We'll look to probably refine it and revise it. Right now, if you can tentatively hold the second Thursday in June from 9 to 11, that would be our normal cycle, and that's when we'd hopefully look to bring it back to you. Unless something absolutely derails on us, that's my target timeline for bringing closure to this. So, last call. Anything else for the good of the group? Hearing.
I was just going to say, Gabe's a man, and welcome, Jorge.
There you go. Okay, with that, great, Francisco. Thank you. Folks, take care. Be safe. Be well. We'll look forward to talking with you soon. I'll get the reports out to everybody and look forward to hearing from you then as we move forward. So thank you guys all very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Great seeing you all.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.